As she opened the carton, a strange smell filled the kitchen, a pungent aroma that made her stomach churn slightly. She began washing the meats, noticing how unnaturally firm the texture felt under her fingers. Suddenly, her fingers brushed against something hard, a human finger. In the outskirt of a big city stood a ground house with tall, imposing walls covered in ivy. The house belonged to the wealthy Okoye family, who rarely interacted with their neighbors. They were known for keeping to themselves, and they were a very successful couple. A teenage girl from a small village surrounded by lush greenery, started working for the Okoye family 4 months ago. At first, it seemed like a good job. They paid her well, and she had enough to eat, but she was never allowed to leave the house. The workload was heavy, and she often found herself cleaning, cooking, and running errands for long hours without much rest. Despite the workload, she wasn't unhappy, but something always felt off, like the house was hiding a secret. Mr. Okoye and his wife, Madame Chika, had peculiar habits. They never ate beef, goat meat, chicken, or fish. Instead, they always requested one specific type of meat that Amaka couldn't quite identify. It looked like pork, but the texture and color were slightly different, with a faint, unfamiliar aroma. Whenever Amaka asked about it, Madame Chica would just brush her off, saying it was a special delicacy from her hometown. Amaka tried to ignore her growing unease, convincing herself that it was none of her business. Maybe the couple had strange tastes, or maybe it was for health reasons. However, her suspicions were aroused further when she noticed that no one else in the household ate the strange meat. Jeed, the driver, and Emeka, the gate man, would always make excuses when offered a plate, saying they had already eaten or weren't hungry. When Amaka tried to ask them why, they would look at her with fear in their eyes and tell her to mind her own business, leaving her even more confused. One day, Madame Chica came home with a large carton of the mysterious meat, its packaging damp from ice that had partially melted. Amaka was instructed to prepare it immediately. As she opened the carton, a strange smell filled the kitchen, different from anything she had encountered before, carrying an unsettling metallic hint. She began washing the meats, her hands working mechanically as her mind drifted towards her family back home and the last time she had seen her siblings laughing under the baobab tree. Suddenly, her fingers brushed against something hard and out of place. Puzzled, Amaka pulled the piece out of the water. It was a long, thin bone, unlike anything she had ever seen in meat before. She continued to inspect it, her heart pounding, and then her eyes fell on something that made her gasp and drop the meat on the floor. A human finger. Amaka's world tilted, and she staggered back, clutching the sink for support. Her stomach churned, and she barely made it to the trash bin before vomiting. She looked back at the meat, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. It can't be true, she thought to herself. Her mind raced. How many times had she cooked this meat? How many times had Mr. and Mrs. Okoye sat at their table, eating with pleasure, while she unknowingly served them human flesh? She felt sickened, guilty, and terrified all at once. What kind of people were they? And more importantly, what would happen if they found out she knew? Amaka knew she had to get out of that house, but escaping was easier said than done. The gates were always locked, and Emeka, the gate man, never allowed anyone to leave the house without Mr. or Mrs. Okoye's permission. Jede, the driver, was equally unfriendly and would not help her, no matter how much she pleaded. Amaka felt trapped, like a prisoner in a house filled with dark secrets. For the next few days, Amaka tried to act normal, pretending she hadn't seen anything. She did her chores quietly, keeping her head down and avoiding eye contact with anyone. But inside, she was plotting her escape. Late at night, when everyone was asleep, she would tiptoe to the kitchen, trying to find a way out. She thought about climbing over the fence, but it was too high and covered in sharp, broken glass. She considered sneaking out when the gates were briefly opened, but Emeka was always watching, his stern face lit dimly by the yellow glow of the security lamp. The days dragged on, each one filled with fear and anxiety. Amaka couldn't sleep. She couldn't eat. She was haunted by nightmares of bones and blood, of Mr. and Mrs. Okoye finding out she knew their secrets, of Miss out she knew their secrets. She knew she had to get out before it was too late. One morning, as Amaka was cleaning the living room, she overheard Madame Chica on a phone call. She was talking in a hushed tone, her voice calm but menacing. "Make sure the delivery is on time," Madame Chica said. "We have guests this weekend, and they are expecting something special." Amaka's blood ran cold. Who were these guests, and what did Madame Chica mean by something special? The thought that the Okoyes were not just eating human flesh, but possibly serving it to others, made Amaka's skin crawl. She knew she had to leave that day, no matter the cost. That evening, Amaka made her first attempt to escape. She packed a small bag with her most important belongings and waited until the house was quiet. She sneaked down to the back door, hoping to slip past Emeka while he was on his usual night rounds, his footsteps heavy and deliberate on the gravel. But as soon as she stepped outside, Emeka appeared from the shadows. "Where do you think you are going?" he asked. Amaka tried to come up with an excuse, but the fear in her voice gave her away. I, I just wanted some fresh air," she stammered. Emeka grabbed her arm roughly. "Get back inside. You know the rules. No one leaves this house." Defeated, Amaka returned to her room, tears streaming down her face. She was scared, but she refused to give up. She had to be smart, to think of another way. Days went by, and Amaka tried to gain Emeka's trust, bringing him extra food and helping him with his chores. But Emeka remained cold and distant, unwilling to be swayed by her kindness. Then, one fateful afternoon, Amaka noticed something that gave her a glimmer of hope. Jede, the driver, was always careful about locking the car doors when he parked, but on this particular day, he was distracted, talking loudly on his phone as he stepped away. Amaka saw that he had left the back door of the car slightly open. A plan formed in her mind. She would hide in the car and wait for Jede to leave the compound. It was risky, but it was her only chance. She quickly packed her bag again, making sure it was small and light. When the time was right, she slipped into the back seat, crouching down and pulling a blanket over herself to stay hidden. Her heart pounded as she lay still, praying that no one would find her. Minutes felt like hours, and just when she thought she couldn't bear the suspense any longer, Jede returned. He started the engine and drove towards the gates. Amaka held her breath as Emeka opened the gate, letting the car out on the gate, letting the car out. For the first time in months, Amaka felt a surge of hope. She was finally outside those walls, but her relief was short-lived. Jeed stopped at a nearby market, where he usually ran errands for the Okais. Amaka knew she had to get out before Jeed noticed her, so she quietly slipped out of the car and blended into the crowd. She didn't stop running until she was far away from the market. Her legs were aching and her lungs were burning. Amaka found her way to the nearest police station, shaking as she told the officers everything she had seen. At first, they were skeptical, finding it hard to believe that such a respected couple could involve themselves in something as horrific as that. But Amaka's fear and sincerity were impossible to ignore. They launched an investigation, and what they discovered shocked the entire city. Madame Chica had been part of a black market ring that trafficked human organs and meat. The strange meat she brought home was sourced from illegal slaughterhouses run by a network of criminals. The police raided the Okoye's home, uncovering evidence that linked them to the gruesome trade. Mr. and Mrs. Okoye were arrested and their dark secrets were exposed. Amaka's bravery in coming forward helped save countless lives and brought justice to those who had been exploited by the sinister ring. She found a safe place to stay and started a new job far away from the horrors she had escaped. Though the memories would always haunt her, she knew she had done something great. Mr. Something Great and Mrs. Okoye spent the rest of their lives in jail. And that was how the story of Amaka, the brave girl, ended. The lesson from this story is that our instincts often guide us to the truth, even when it's hidden beneath layers of deceit. If something feels wrong, don't ignore it, no matter how respectable or harmless things might appear on the surface. Trust your gut feelings and take action when necessary. Speaking out against injustice, no matter how difficult, can not only protect you, but also help others in similar situations. Your bravery and willingness to act could bring about justice and save lives. Thank you so much for watching my channel. If you enjoyed this story or learned something valuable, please remember to subscribe, like, and turn on notifications to catch more of these compelling narratives. Your support means the world to me. See you in my next video. Bye! Linda realized she was pregnant. She tried to hide it from everyone, including her parents. She even tried to get rid of the pregnancy with the help of Mira and Oki, but it didn't work. Eventually, her mother noticed the changes in her behavior, the morning sickness, her exhaustion, and asked her about it. Linda denied it at first, but later she had to tell the truth. Once upon a time, in a small village wrapped in the arms of nature, there lived a girl named Linda. Linda was like a shining star in her village, known for her beauty that seemed to light up the whole place. She was the only child of her loving parents. Her father, a hard-working farmer who always came home with a smile despite his fatigue, and her mother, a skilled weaver whose hands wove magic into cloth, creating colorful patterns that seemed to tell stories of their own. In this village, where every sunrise brought a new story, Linda was a tale of her own. From the elders sitting under the baobab tree to the youngsters playing near the stream, everyone knew of Linda. They admired her not just for her looks, but for the kindness that sparkled in her eyes. Strangers who passed through the village for trade or travel couldn't help but notice Linda. They often left gifts, coins, and pretty trinkets, as if touched by her grace. Linda's parents, though simple in their means, treated her like a queen. They dreamed of a future where she would find a love as grand as the tales told by the traveling birds. They hoped for her to meet a man who was not only handsome but kind hearted, someone who would cherish their precious daughter as they did. In this village, where each day flowed like a gentle river, Linda's life was simple yet full of warmth. She helped her mother with weaving, often spending hours working on the loom while listening to her mother tell stories of her own youth. Sometimes she accompanied her father to the fields, watching him work tirelessly under the sun and helping whenever she could by carrying water or gathering vegetables. Her laughter was a melody that resonated in the hearts of those who heard it, and it often echoed through the fields and along the village paths, brightening everyone's day. This is the story of Linda, the village jewel, whose life was about to take a turn she never expected, a story of beauty, choices, and the mysterious paths of life. Let us walk with her on this journey and see where the winds of fate take her. In the same village, not far from where Linda lived, there were two girls named Mira and Oki. They came from the richest families in the village, living in large, beautifully decorated houses, with gardens full of bright flowers, Everybody respected them because of their wealth. They wore the most expensive clothes, made of fabrics imported from distant lands, and had things that even the hardest working farmer couldn't afford. They didn't make friends with other girls because they thought they were better than everyone else. As Linda turned 17, her beauty became even more mesmerizing. Her long dark hair flowed like silk, and her eyes seemed to hold the warmth of the sun. Everyone in the village wanted to see her. One day, Mira and Oki were sitting by the stream, laughing and talking. Linda came to fetch water. She was polite and greeted them, as she always did with everyone. When she was about to leave with her water, Mira and Oki called her. They asked if they could be her friends. Linda's heart swelled with happiness at this unexpected offer of friendship. She couldn't believe that the most respected girls in the village wanted to be friends with her. She hurried home, excited to share the news with her mother. Her mother, wise and thoughtful, listened to Linda's excited chatter. She smiled, but also offered a word of caution. It's good to make new friends, but be careful, Linda. We don't have what they have. They might try to change you, she warned, her fingers moving deftly across the loom as she spoke. Linda's mother also told her to stay true to herself and her values despite the allure of this new world. But Linda was too excited to worry. She was so thrilled at the prospect of being friends with Mira and Oki. She started spending more of her time with them. They went out together, played, and explored the village. Mira and Oki showed Linda places she had never been, including the grand gardens of their homes, filled with flowers of every color and exotic decorations that dazzled Linda. Linda's life began to change. She was entering a new world with her new friends, a world different from the simple life she had always known. The lavish meals at Mira and Oki's homes, the lavish meals at Mira and Oki's homes, the luxurious clothes they wore, and the carefree way they lived fascinated Linda. She began to wish for more than the simplicity of her old life. As the days passed, Linda found herself increasingly absorbed in the lives of her new friends, drawn into a world that glittered with wealth, but was perhaps not as bright as it seemed. This was a new chapter in Linda's life, one that would lead her down paths she had never imagined. Linda, Mira, and Oki became close friends. One day, they heard about a big festival happening in a nearby village. Mira and Oki were excited and wanted Linda to come with them. Linda hesitated at first. The idea of venturing out to a festival in another village was daunting. She thought of her parents, their expectations, and the simple life she was accustomed to. But Mira and Oki were persuasive. They painted pictures of the fun and excitement that awaited them, the music, the dancing, the colorful lights that would fill the night sky. They said to Linda, "You're old enough to make your own choices. You don't have to tell your parents everything." Slowly, Linda's hesitation turned into curiosity. After thinking about it, Linda agreed to go with them. It was her first time going to such a big event without her parents. At the festival, Linda caught the eyes of many men. They all wanted to talk to her because of her beauty. At first, she didn't want to speak with them, but Mira and Oki encouraged her. They said, "You're beautiful and you can get anything you want with your looks." So Linda started talking to them, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness as she ventured into this new social scene. Then, a young man named Darren came to the festival. He saw Linda and wanted to meet her. They talked and they got along well. Darren was charming, with a bright smile and an easy laugh that made Linda feel special. After meeting Darren, Linda felt different. She started thinking she could live a life different from the one in her village. She liked the attention and the new way of life her friends showed her. That festival changed Linda. She began to act differently, more confident but also a bit arrogant. The respectful village girl was now tasting a new life, one that was taking her away from her simple and humble beginnings. After the festival, Linda changed a lot. She became more confident, but with it came a sense of arrogance. She started going out without telling her parents, wearing clothes that were more extravagant, and sometimes even ignored the village elders when they greeted her. The once polite and respectful Linda was now acting differently. Then came Linda's 18th birthday. The whole village celebrated her beauty, just like they did every year. They gathered around, and Linda wore a beautiful dress her mother had made, embroidered with golden threads. Her mother had made embroidered with golden threads. She received many gifts from the villagers, but this time there was a man named Ethan who brought his gifts a day after her birthday. Ethan was handsome, rich, tall, and fair. Many women in the village dreamed of marrying him. Ethan started visiting Linda often. He brought her flowers and small trinkets, always speaking in a charming manner that made Linda's heart flutter. She liked him and enjoyed his company. During this time, Linda's parents got suspicious of Ethan's frequent visits and tried to warn Linda to stay away from him. But she wouldn't listen. Her arrogance had now gotten the best of her. She told her parents that she was now a big girl and could make decisions for herself. Then, one hot afternoon, Ethan came to visit and took Linda to his house, far from her parents' home. His house was grand, with high ceilings and beautifully carved furniture. He treated her well, and they spent a lot of time together. They talked, laughed, and enjoyed each other's company. But that day, something happened that changed everything. They became intimate. Not long after, Linda realized she was pregnant. She tried to hide it from everyone, including her parents. She even tried to get rid of the pregnancy with the help of Mira and Oki, but it didn't work. Eventually, her mother noticed the changes, the way Linda avoided eye contact, her sudden exhaustion, and her growing belly, and asked her about it. Linda denied it at first, but later she had to tell the truth. When her parents found out, they were disappointed and felt disgraced. The villagers, who once admired Linda and brought gifts, stopped coming. Linda felt ashamed and lost. She tried to reach out to Ethan, but he stopped coming to see her. When her parents and Linda went to Ethan's house to confront him, they found out he had left the village for good. Linda felt betrayed and alone. Her friends Mira and Oki also turned their backs on her, saying they had nothing to do with her pregnancy. The girl who was once the jewel of the village was now facing the hardest time of her life. She had to live with the choices she made, far from the simple and joyful life she once knew. The news of her pregnancy spread fast through the village. Linda, who was once surrounded by friends and admirers, found herself isolated. The community, which had celebrated her every birthday, now seemed cold and distant. The love and admiration they had for her turned into judgment and gossip. Ethan, the father of her child, had abandoned her and left the village. Linda felt deeply betrayed by him. She had trusted him and believed in the promises he made, but when she needed him the most, he was nowhere to be found. The realization that he would not be there for her or their child was heartbreaking. Lina also felt betrayed by her friends, Mira and Oki. They had been her companions in the journey that led her to this point, but now they denied any involvement. They said they had nothing to do with her pregnancy and avoided her. This abandonment by her friends added to her pain and loneliness. As her pregnancy advanced, Linda had to face the reality of her situation. She was going to be a young mother without the support of the child's father and in a community that no longer looked at her the same way. The respect and admiration she once enjoyed were gone, replaced by judgment and isolation. She spent her days helping her mother, who still loved her unconditionally, and preparing for the arrival of her baby, trying to find solace in the small moments of beauty that still surrounded her. And that is the end of the story. You see, Linda's story teaches us some simple but important lessons. First, it shows that the choices we make are important and can change our lives, so we should think carefully before deciding. It also tells us that the people we hang out with can influence us a lot, sometimes in ways we don't expect. The story reminds us that every action has a result, and sometimes these results can be tough to deal with. It teaches us that what really matters is who we are on the inside, not just how we look or how popular we are. And finally, Linda's story shows us that no matter what mistakes we make, there's always a chance to start over and make things right. This story is all about learning from our mistakes and remembering what's truly important in life. Thank you for joining us on Linda's journey. Remember, life is full of choices, and each one shapes who we become. Let's strive to make choices that bring us closer to our true selves. If you enjoyed this story and want more lessons like this, please subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. Goodbye. But then something unexpected happened. One of the girls at the river playfully splashed water on Zena. Right away, Zena started to change. Her skin began to look like fish scales, and she was turning into a fish. Scales, and she was turning into a fish. Once upon a time, in a serene African village, there lived a woman named Kemi and her husband, Tunda. They had been married for many years, yet they were childless. Kemi had conceived several times, but each pregnancy ended in miscarriage just after a few weeks. The husband's family, worried about the family's lineage, suggested he marry another woman, believing Kemi to be a witch who used her miscarriages for witchcraft rituals. However, her husband deeply loved her and remained confident in his belief that one day Kemi would bear him a child. After many years, Kemi became pregnant again. The villagers, skeptical based on past events, anticipated another miscarriage. They said this is how she always gets pregnant, but just after a few weeks, she would use it for ritual. But against all odds, Kemi carried the pregnancy beyond 9 months, and to the villagers' astonishment, she gave birth to twins, two beautiful girls named Zara and Lani. This was an unprecedented event in the village, as twins had never been born there before. The village rejoiced at Kemi's blessing. People from all around came to her house, showering her with gifts, for twins were considered a great blessing. Some even brought handmade dolls and freshly harvested fruits. As Zara and Lainey grew, they became beloved figures in the village. Men and women would visit just to spend time with them, some even taking them out to treat them with gifts and then returning them safely. The twins were like rays of sunshine, adored by everyone in the village. Zara and Lainey, the twins, grew up, and their charm was like a spell on the villagers. Everyone loved them. The twins would often dance during the village festivals, their laughter echoing through the air and bringing smiles to everyone's faces. But one day, something strange happened that showed the villagers another side of these twins. Fatima, a well-known trader in the village, often took the twins with her. One day, she took them to the market. Unaware to Fatima, Zara and Lainey started eating her food. Fatima, furious, scolded and beat them. But the twins, instead of crying, just laughed. They told Fatima that the marks from the beating would appear on her own daughter when she returned home. But Fatima dismissed their words as mere child's talk. But when Fatima got home, she was shocked. Her daughter was there, crying with marks on her back, exactly where Fatima had beaten the twins. She couldn't understand how this happened. Fatima told the villagers about it, but nobody believed her. They thought maybe she was dreaming or making it up. But this incident changed how the village saw the twins. The more Zara and Lainey grew, the more mysterious they became. Their ability to transfer pain to others sowed a mix of fear and awe in the hearts of the villagers. The twins, once seen as a blessing, were now also viewed with caution, their powers a source of wonder and concern. As Zara and Lainey, the twins, grew, their mysterious powers became more noticeable. One day, they accidentally crossed paths with a feared old woman in the village, known for her harshness and quick temper. This encounter revealed yet another astonishing aspect of the twins' abilities. While playing near the village square, the twins accidentally knocked over the old woman's cooking pot, spilling the porridge she was cooking. Knowing how wicked and dangerous the old woman was, they immediately apologized. They tried to explain it was a mistake, but the old woman, enraged, started to curse them and even made them kneel down, holding heavy stones as punishment. The twins, distressed with the punishment despite their apology, uttered a chilling curse of their own on the old woman. They declared that whenever the old woman tried to enter her hut, it would keep moving further away, always out of reach. The old woman, dismissing the words as mere childish threats, just like Fatima did, soon discovered the terrifying truth. As she attempted to enter her hut, it seemed to move further away, no matter how much she walked towards it. She walked and walked, but her hut kept getting a step further. Exhausted and frightened, she begged the twins for forgiveness. The villagers who had gathered around were astounded. The same woman who had instilled fear in them for years was now pleading with the young twins. This event significantly altered the villagers' perception of Zara and Lainey. The twins, once adored for their charm, were now both revered and feared for their powers. They had made the fearsome old woman beg for mercy, something no one in the village had ever imagined possible. The twins had become powerful figures, respected and somewhat feared in the hearts of the villagers. As Zara and Lani, the twins, got older, things in the village started to change for them. The special powers that once made everyone love and pay attention to them now made people scared. The villagers, who used to be charmed by the twins, now kept away from them because they were afraid of what the twins could do. This fear changed how people acted around Zara and Lani. Even the young men in the village, who might have liked to be their friends or more, didn't want to get close to them anymore. Being near the twins and their strange powers was too scary for them. Zara and Lainey started to feel alone. Their powers, which were amazing, made it hard for them to make friends or be close to anyone. Feeling lonely and wanting to be just like other young people in the village, Zara and Lani wished they could play, laugh and make friends without making others scared. They wanted a normal life, just like everyone else. Just like everyone else. This wish made them think about breaking one important rule their mother had always told them: never to go near the river. Their mom was always very serious about this rule, but she never told them why. Being curious and wanting to change their lonely life, Zara and Lainey decided to go to the river, a place they had always been told to avoid. This choice, made because they wanted to escape their loneliness, was the beginning of a big change in their lives. Zara and Lainey, excited for an adventure and wanting to fit in, made their way to the river. The river was always busy with people washing, swimming, and having fun in the cool water. The twins wanted to be a part of this, to play and be like the other villagers without worries or fears. At first, the presence of the twins caused fear and confusion. People began to leave, packing up their belongings and quickly moving away from the water. The twins, however, called out to them, pleading for a chance to be seen as just another part of the community. They assured everyone that they meant no harm. They only wanted to play and share in the joy of the river. Slowly, some people decided to stay. They were careful at first, but then things started to feel normal again. The twins were laughing and playing with the others, and it looked like their dream of being just like everyone else was coming true. But then something unexpected happened. One of the girls at the river playfully splashed water on Zina. Right away, Zina started to change. Her skin began to look like fish scales, and she was turning into a fish scales, and she was turning into a fish. Lainey, trying to help her sister, also touched the water and started changing too. Everyone was scared and didn't know what to do. They ran to get Kimi, the twins' mother. When Kimi came, she saw her daughters turning into river creatures. She was heartbroken, crying as she watched this strange thing happening to her daughters. Her sadness filled the air by the river, showing how helpless she felt as her daughters changed in a way no one could understand. When Zara and Lainey changed at the river, everyone in the village was shocked and confused. In all this trouble, the village priest came up with a big secret about the twins. He said that Zara and Lainey were actually children of the river goddess. This was a secret Kemi, their mother, had kept to herself because she was so scared. Kimi then told everyone the truth. She was so afraid of losing her husband and her place in the village that she had gone to see a herbalist a long time ago. The herbalist asked the river goddess to give Kemi children, but there was one big rule. The children must never touch the river, or they would go back to the river goddess. There was no way to change the twins back, and now everyone knew they belonged to the river goddess. But there's more to the story. Kemi, desperate to help her daughters, went to find the herbalist who had helped her before. But when she got to the herbalist's place, she found out he had died a few years ago. There was no other way to help the twins. With no other way, the village had to make a very sad choice. With lots of crying and praying, they took Zara and Lainey back to the river, giving them back to the goddess. But then something amazing happened. The river took Xena and made her one of its own, but it sent Lani back to land as a human again. Everyone was amazed to see the power and kindness of the river goddess. Kimi and Lainey hugged each other on the riverbank, both happy and sad. They had gone through so much. They had to learn how to live with missing Zara, who was now part of the river, and remember everything that had happened. Kemi learned a big lesson: to always wait for God's time, because it is always the best. You see, the story of Zara and Lani, the twins people once called evil, turned into a story about love, trust, and accepting things in the village. It showed that sometimes the best things happen in ways you don't expect, and that life's mysteries can teach important lessons. Kemi and Lani, their lives changed by what they went through, found peace, and learned to be thankful every day. They always felt a special connection to the river, which had given them so much and also taken away. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey through the story of Zara and Lainey. If you found their tale inspiring, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more incredible stories. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. We appreciate your support and can't wait to share the next story with you. Goodbye for now.